I'm confused as to why Young Noble of the Outlawz just savagely dissed Nas.
I was there when Nas came up, when Nas and Tupac had their words. I was right there, Suge too. And Nas kept it 100. He was like, yeah, man, what's going on? And Tupac kept it 100 too. He said, yeah, man, I did some songs dissing you, but you know, I ain't even tripping off that. I'm gonna take that off. So they talked it out and it was cool. Everything was cool after that. But before the shit jumped off, everybody was because we was deep, but they was deeper. We out there, man. They could have demolished us if they wanted to. I don't know. They had guns in there too this time, but we out there on their turf, so I don't know. They probably would have killed all of us. I don't know. That could have happened.
Pushing going on, his boys, yo, Pac, tell your boys to back up. Niggas ain't backing up nothing. Like this, it was a little tense exchange, but them niggas handle it like men, and they talk. And Pac told him what the fuck was going on. He told him he had him on. He dissed him on Against All Odds. He told him he was gonna take it off. He like, yo, nigga, we gotta work. Niggas should never be going at each other like that. You know what I'm saying? And it was a simple exchange, and Nas walked away. Right? It was a little hectic, you know, for a minute, a little pushing Suge right there. You know, Snoop was way over there on the other side of the field. I saw him specifically. He was way over there. You know what I mean? I was right there, shoulder to shoulder with Pac, with one of my favorite rappers, Nas, right in front of my face, right? Then they left, right? We was all happy that this happened. You know what I mean? Pac loved Nas. I know they had nothing but respect for each other. I know all our Jersey niggas love that nigga. How do I know? Because that's all we played when that nigga came out from, you know, his first verse you ever heard. You know what I mean? Fucking live at the barbecue. We was all rocking with the nigga. They don't get played on the radio no more, or things like that. He don't need none of that shit. He's rich. He's a fucking legend. But it's like the little internet buzz, right? Where I'm going to throw a little Tupac line because he see this Death Row East story, you know, this not Death, you know, that whole MTV story, you know, with him running into Pac, how it just grew legs and all these different versions of the motherfucking story, you know? So, you know, like throwing out the Pac line, right? About teaching him how to, he gave him his first sip of Hennessy. He'll do that on one album. The next album, it'll be like, I'm gonna do the Death Row East song. You know, then the next album, it'll be like, what'd he say? Something about, he stole Pac's Thug Life tat because he got the Godson tat, but then he's saying, Pac stole the Machiavelli, the euthanasia chain from his QB chain.
So Nas grabbed him up under his arm and said, yo, let me holler at you. And that's when we all kind of surrounded on him. So I'm on his right side, Jungle's on his left side. Nas is in front of him. A couple of my peoples in the back. So Jungle talking, yo, you talking, right? I'm son. You talking, he's like, calm him down, Nas, calm him down. So he barking, Nas did like this. And Jung just shut up like, on touch. Just on touch. I was like, oh, that was smooth.
You know, but after they spoke like men, you know, because, bro, I think it would have been a bloodbath in that part. It was set up for all of this. It was set up. No police was around. It was just set up in a way where if it's going to go down, it's going to go down. So respect. Shout out to Nas. You know what I mean? Shout out to Nas. He's another dude. He's down to earth, humble dude.
So the incident at Bryant Park, Snoop, he did an interview with Arian Foster, and he said that Nas, he had like 100 people with guns.
Mm-hmm. First of all, Snoop wasn't even next to us when that happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, he bugging. He knew damn well it wasn't like that.
So Snoop was nowhere around?
No.
Not when they had the little altercation. Snoop wasn't there. Last time I seen Snoop when we was walking down there, he was passing out the money in the bottle. And I seen Snoop again when we jumped in the vans to leave.
Yeah. So you telling me when Tupac and Nas had the incident at Bryant Park,
he wasn't there.
Nas was nowhere. Snoop was nowhere to be found.
Nowhere.
You know, so the amazing, wild stories that I done heard over these years. I'm gonna start with Snoop Dogg. Nothing but love for Snoop Dogg. He told a wild version. You know, I think like with Snoop, Like when I Snoop Kendrick, the joint he just dropped, he was saying Snoop, I hope it was the edibles. I hope it was the edibles when he said this one.
What up, words? Your boy Charles Brown back again talking facts. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe, hit the notification bell. Keep sending those Cashaps to CLBMG. Gang, listen, this is disappointing. I'm just going to be extremely honest, gang. Like, some of these stories I do are upbeat, some are serious, some are funny. But this one, I'm going to use the word touchy. I'm going to use the word very touchy. Because when I say I'm confused, I mean more so that I have questions that I need answered before I can completely understand why Young Noble just put out the wildest diss record. Extremely disrespectful against Nas. And I thought this was an old issue that wasn't this serious to get this much vitriol. But apparently, Young Noble of the Outlawz is extremely feeling a serious way about Nas. And I've been going down a rabbit hole for the last hour, 2 hours, just trying to figure out, because I know why he did it, but I need to know why he did it because I see the entire picture. I saw an interview with Young Noble of the Outlawz. He was on The Art of Dialogue. And he was upset. He was a little upset about, and I'm not even going to say upset. Let's just be clear, because this is why the diss record came out of nowhere to me. Because I watched him on The Art of Dialogue 3 weeks ago, right? And the title says Young Noble calls out Nas and Snoop Dogg for lying about the Tupac encounter with Nas at the MTV Awards. Now, if you are a Tupac fan, you surely have heard about the Bryant Park confrontation of Nas and Tupac. Death Row East, Suge Knight, Nas's brother Jungle, G Wiz, all these guys have a different story. Fatal, Noble, they all have a different story of this encounter, and they all vary to some degree, but they all agree. And this is why I'm so confused. That Tupac and Nas stepped together, hashed out their differences right there on the spot like G's, like men, and both walked away saying they were cool. Tupac even told Nas, I'm going to delete these disses off of my records that I'm about to drop. He was about to drop. He had some songs that he dissed Nas on. He walked away from this encounter telling Nas that he was going to delete those records and that he loved them, right? So over the last, I want to say 5 years or so, the story of the Bryant Park encounter has been rehashed basically because of, let's just be honest, it was Snoop who came up with the story that went viral. And everybody has had an opinion about that to the point that it has bubbled up to where Young Noble is now dissing Nas. Terribly dissing Nas. Like, dissing Nas like he can't stand him. But I want to get to all that later, right? Snoop says that Tupac confronted Nas in the park, in Bryant Park in New York City after the MTV Awards. He said that Suge and Pac had some guys with him, the Death Row East guys, but this is Snoop, from Snoop's vantage point, Nas had way more guys with him than Tupac had, and that Tupac, if he wanted to, he could have mopped up Nas, if Nas wanted to, he could have mopped up Tupac and Suge right there on the spot. It was a very interesting story because it kind of played into the narrative that Nas is this quiet boss, and he deserves respect. And it plays into the narrative that, let's just be honest, that Tupac was a hothead that didn't always think first. So he said that Tupac was screaming on Nas, I'm gonna diss you and you ain't gonna say nothing, da-da-da. And Nas was just very calm and cool, but he had a whole, Tupac thought he was in control, but according to Snoop, he wasn't in control. Now, a lot of other guys have come out saying that this wasn't the case, that Tupac and Suge were there with 100 guys. The stories varies. It goes from 40 guys to 60 guys to 100 guys, depending on who you talk to, right? They were wearing Death Row East shirts. They had picket signs that said Death Row East. They were promoting the record label. Now, Tupac had just done the infamous interview where he was talking about Death Row East, right? And he said a couple things. The interview was over. He stepped off. They ended up in the park, presumably for whatever reason, the smoke or whatever, and they bump into, according to all of their accounts, the Nas encounter was not, they did not agree, they didn't plan it. Nas just happened to come around the corner, and they were like, oh, there's Nas. And Nas said the same thing, oh, there's Pac. Tupac and Nas approached each other. Both had these crews, no matter how you want to say it. Some of the Death Row guys and Outlaw guys, their experiences are that Nas had 6 or 7 people, right? That's been consistent through their themes to a degree, because there's other guys like Low MB, who was of the Death Row group OFTB, right? They were signed to Death Row Records, and they were there too, and he disputes how many people that Nas has. Nas people, G Wiz and other people from Bravehearts are saying that they had a lot of dudes come up from different parts of Jersey and was in that park ready to throw down, right? So both crews are saying they had a massive amount of people there. Snoop, admittedly, by everyone's account, was off to the side, right? Snoop was over there. Some guys say he was doing an interview. Some guys say he was off to the side. He wasn't close enough. By all accounts, Snoop wasn't he wasn't in arm's reach of Tupac. He wasn't anywhere close. He got there on his own accord. He wasn't part of the conversation, so he doesn't know what was going on, right? So we can all agree that Snoop was off to the side. Now, Young Noble drops this record. Visceral. He's going crazy on Nas, right? But I'm confused for the first part. I'm going to be very careful, because I know people's feelings are raw. People are very sensitive about Tupac, which is why we got this song. This is why we got this song in the first place. People are they take their Tupac serious, gang. I understand that. So I'm going to be as careful as to not disrespect anybody. We're all grown men. Young Noble is 46 years old. Nas is in his 40s, right? I'm going to say this respectfully, but Young Noble is extremely upset about this stuff, and I don't know if he should be this mad about it. We all know, and to his own account, that Nas and Tupac squashed that beef that day. And I'm going to explain to you why Young Noble, in his words, came up with this diss record. And I was hoping he wouldn't, because when I watched the interview, I watched him on The Art of Dialogue 3 weeks ago, he said he was disappointed in Nas, but he also said throughout that video several times Nas was his favorite rapper. He admired Nas extremely. He said Nas handled that situation like a G. He said even though Nas was outnumbered, he handled it cooler than he's ever seen anyone. He said he had more respect for Nas after that day than he ever had in his entire life. He basically was like talking God tier respect for Nas. So for this record to be this disrespectful and visceral, I have to question myself and say, gang, why would you make a record this disrespectful? You started out with some of the most heinous things. You talk about following his daughter on Instagram and you're going to take your shot. You talk about Nas was signed to Jay-Z and all. Like you're bringing up you took all the shots you could take. It's 7 minutes long, right? It's 7 minutes long, and I get it. Like I said, I understand. Every Tupac conversation is touchy. I understand that. And this guy was right there, arm in arm. I believe Noble is one of the last. I think he is the last outlaw. So all of these guys, their lives are real. They're not really. You know what I'm saying? Like these guys, they live a real life. So I understand why he's passionate, but he's very articulate and he's very smart. And he made his case as to why he was upset with Nas. And I'm going to talk about that, because what I'm seeing with him, what he said in this interview as to why he was upset with Nas, I have some issues with it, right? I just have some issues with it. Now, let's start with, and I get it, I understand. He's saying that Nas is trying to use Tupac's name for clout because Nas is distorting the story, right? From my account, Nas never brings that story up. The first time he talked about it, he barely touched on it, was the Death Row East song, right? But let's just talk about it. So let's just say Tupac was mad at Nas. I believe Tupac died about 2 or 3 days later after he had that confrontation with Nas. Let's just say both gangs were deep in the park, Bryant Park. Let's just say Nas and Tupac is all kind of if you go watch Math Hoffa, G Wiz is on there. If you go watch Art of Dialogue, you got Low and B, you got Napoleon, you got everybody has a story. Right? Gotti and Moody Bang from Fatal, Hussein Fatal, all of them have a different version. But when you boil down all the versions, Nas stood on business. None of them said Nas was a sucker. None of them said Nas was soft. So to diss Nas about this it was 29 years later. When you admittedly, if you really watch Young Noble almost idolized Nas as much as Pac. It sounds like to me it was Pac and then Nas. So this is more of a hurt. This is more of a disappointment and a pain. So let me just say this respectfully. When we get in our 40s, we're grown men, we're elder statesmen. We got to deal with our pain differently. Right? Young Noble lashed out with the essence of Pac on this thing. He really said, I'm riding for Tupac. Right? You're riding for Tupac, but the energy you're riding with is 25-year-old Tupac. I don't think 45-year-old Tupac would handle this way. Just gonna be honest. Now I want to talk about why Young Noble feels that Nas disrespected Tupac's legacy. That's what this is about. He feels Nas disrespected Tupac's legacy. So let me speak on that. So the first thing he's saying is that story is growing legs and the narrative is getting spun that Nas had him outmanned, outgunned, he was just overwhelmed. He said that is the falsification of the event. They were deeper than Nas. In his opinion, they had way more people than Nas, and Nas handled his business either way. So at the end of the day, there's the only debate you're debating, disputing about that is how many people were on each side. You're not saying that Nas lied about what happened in the park. You're really more mad at Jungle. Let's just be honest, because Jungle said in some interview that he was thinking about shooting Pac. He could have shot Pac. That's irrelevant because first of all, Nas is not Jungle. That's his brother. Second of all, he didn't shoot him. So what are we talking about, right? So if he said that, first of all, he shouldn't have said that. I'm just gonna be honest. You shouldn't be reliving history 20 years later talking about, yeah, I started to shoot him. No. We're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. I really don't, listen, when we all from the same background. We all from these hoods, and we don't say stuff like, I should have shot. We don't do that. So let's just call it what it is. I don't know if he said that. I didn't find that record of him saying that. But that's what Young Noble said he said. Now, let's get it. Let's say that. He's wrong for that. That's Jungle. Nas never said that. Right? Then his other issue was Snoop's retelling of the story was inaccurate because Snoop made it look like Nas had them outnumbered. But then in the same interview, he gives Snoop a pass. He says, I'm going to give Snoop a pass because it was mad years ago. Snoop smokes a lot of weed and he's old. He may have got the story wrong. So respectfully, Young Noble, you're giving Snoop a pass for his memory recollection. But then on the same video, you get mad at Nas saying that he gave Tupac his first sip of Hennessy, and you get mad at Nas saying that Tupac stole his euthanasia chain because it was Queensbridge chain. It was Nas had the Queensbridge chain, and Nas said that it's not stole. That's the wrong word. He copied. Nas got that story wrong. But arguing over who made a circular style chain is crazy because Slick Rick did it before all of y'all niggas. Right? Slick Rick had the circular medallion, the big truck jewelry. So anybody arguing over chains, who did it first sound crazy to me, respectfully. Just gonna be honest. So, Young Noble's issue for this visceral diss record is that Nas incorrectly said he gave Tupac his first sip of Henny. Nas was like, he rapped on the songs, yo. Nas was like, what you drinking? Oh, it's Henny. I gave him his first sip of Henny. That pissed people off. I told you, people are touchy about, they're really touchy about Pac. A dude will put his hands on you to this day over Tupac. 30 years later. And that's what Young Noble feels. He feels like he's protecting Tupac to this day. Right? Now, let's just take those two things because those are really, let's just be honest. Those are the two things that Noble's really mad about. He said he probably got mad stories that he's collected, but the stories he said was that I gave Tupac his first sip of Hennessy. He didn't like that. And he said that Tupac copied my QB chain for his euthanasia chain. Right? That's why the diss record is named Euthanasia. So, let's just say, and it's provable that Nas, he didn't copy Nas's chain because Nas didn't have a QB chain yet. There's no pictures of Nas having that QB chain at that time. Nas didn't come up with that QB chain till, allegedly, according to all accounts, he didn't come up with that QB chain till 97. Pac died in 96. So let's just say Nas misremembered that. And Nas misremembered the Henny thing. But Nas could be telling from his perception. Maybe Tupac did say, what you drinking? Right? And let's just be honest, there are different forms of Henny. Huh? What? It's more expensive forms of Henny. Yes. You got VSOP. I'm not a Henny connoisseur, but even I know there are different forms of Henny. So somebody could be drinking this kind of Henny, a cheap-ass Henny. They even got vanilla Henny. They got all kind of Hennys. So maybe Nas was drinking a different Henny and he put him onto it. Now, maybe Nas incorrectly said Henny of and of itself, but maybe Nas put him onto a different Henny. But see, this is what grown men conversations become. You're grown enough and Nas is grown enough to have that conversation. Nas is not going to respond to this. There's no reason because this stuff is stuff that will escalate for no reason. Nas is in a place right now, he has zero reason to escalate any kind of beef. And I'm just going to be honest, and Young Noble, this is clearly, I'm not disrespecting this guy. I'm just having a conversation because I feel like these guys need to have a conversation with themselves rather than this really, really painful diss record. Like, it's really like he went at this dude, like, just deserves the worst. Because he said in the song, I'm going to keep coming at you till you respond. Like, when I peel back the layers, right, I don't think it needs to be this deep. Because at the end of the day, if Young Noble's going to forgive Snoop for misrepresenting the story, and I'm not going to say Snoop is the only one that said that. I just told you, Low MB from OFTB, he said we could have died that day. He's standing on, he said he was right beside Suge. And he said we could have died that day. They all could have died because it could have just been a blood. They all agree. Napoleon said it could have been a bloodbath. All of them. You can't have a bloodbath when it's 100 goons and it's 6 of them. That ain't no bloodbath. So why would Noble say it would have been a bloodbath? Noble was saying on both sides it would have been casualties. Why? If I got 100 dudes with guns and you got 6, that ain't going to be a long fight. I'm just going to be honest. If they only had 6... I don't know about the bloodbath. That's a couple shots and them dudes is cooked. It's over. So ain't no bloodbath except for them 6 dudes and Nas. So it got to make sense. It had to be people on both sides. Let's just be honest. Now, like I said, I know it's touchy. Right? Salute to Young Noble for being an honorable man and standing up for his love of Tupac. Because we all love Tupac, right? We didn't know him as well as Young Noble, but we all love Tupac. But every single guy that I'm mentioning has a different take on this story. I guarantee you, if you ask Suge Knight, he'll have a different take. So pointing at Nas and coming out with a diss record and not Snoop and saying Snoop gets a pass, but Nas gets 7 minutes of fury, I'm scratching my head about that. Right? And that's fine. He called G Wiz, he called him a crackhead. He said, oh, he's a crackhead, da-da-da. G-Wiz of Braveheart. He's just dissing. He's doing what he's supposed to do. When you the diss record is what it's supposed to be. Pac would have been proud of this diss record. But I don't think we got the same Pac from 1996 that we would have had in 2025. So I don't think Pac would be really doing any of this to anybody. Right? Because this leads to violence, which I get it. I think diss records in and of themselves, they should stay on wax, and I understand that, but they don't always stay on wax. We got many instances back in 1996 and 97, 98, where fights, shootouts, robberies happened over diss records. So this could get into a bad space where dudes want to prove how tough they are and blah, 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 and taking up for Pac, who been gone for 30 years. We gotta, as a culture, we gotta really be careful about these diss records that we put out. They gotta really be warranted. And to me, like I said, the things that he's, in essence, unless there's something I don't see, the things that he's mad about don't warrant this much visceral and disrespect and anger. And he's like his heart. I like my rap hard. I like it. But I need it to be for a really serious reason. Nas has nothing to gain by responding to this. I'm just going to be honest. This is something that would make Nas go backwards in life. He said he never wanted to speak on another man on a diss record since Jay-Z, and he hasn't. He's not dissed anybody since Jay-Z. And that was 20 years ago. I am imploring Young Noble, right, to understand where he's taking this hip hop when he does this, because you've already said Nas is your favorite rapper. That is, to me, I'm not going to diss somebody. And I understand you think you're protecting Tupac's legacy, but Nas has already been debunked with the chain. Right? Nas said that back in 2020 about the chain, and all kind of websites came out and debunked Nas. And maybe Nas misspoke. We could give him some grace just like we giving Snoop some grace. Right? A chain and some Hennessy. Right? In other words, these dudes were interacting. And when they left each other Nas says in the song, I went to Vegas to chop it up with Tupac, and Tupac didn't make it out of Vegas. Tupac got killed when he went to Vegas to talk to him. He shot the Street Dreams video, and then he was supposed to meet with Tupac, but Tupac didn't make it. These dudes probably would have came out with a whole record. Like it would have been a whole thing. So you're kind of making it crazy for Tupac's legacy to come at Nas right now in 2025. I'm just gonna be honest. So as some grown men stuff, right? This is disappointing to me because I know for a fact you love Nas and you love Tupac, as we all do. Right? Mace dissed Cameron, and now they on one of the biggest shows online. Mace and Cameron was dissing each other for years. Now they're a tag team duo. They working together. We got to show these kids something else. Right? I think the sheer thought that Nas needs to misrepresent Tupac for clout is just misguided, gang. Just misguided. I don't think that's why Nas is saying these things, and it's a different perspective, just like everybody's like Snoop was way over there. Well, Snoop's perspective was from over there, right? Everybody's perspective, Nas' perspective is his perspective. I don't think he deserves to be dissed like this. You're talking about Khalees and everybody else. Like, only a fan can do that. I say that all the time. Only a real fan can really diss somebody where it hurts. Why do you think Machine Gun Kelly diss was so effective to Eminem? Because he was a big fan of Eminem. So you have to be a fan of him. We got to start protecting our fans. And I get it. You're going to see, no, I'm not going to protect him if he's disrespecting Tupac's legacy. Okay, then you can make a record. You literally can make a record just correcting those mistakes. You really don't have to diss Nas to correct his mistakes on record. You could make a whole record like, nah, da-da-da. You could say what you want to say about Pac and big up Pac and call it a day. I'm just going to be honest on some grown man shit. And at that point, I'm going to leave it to y'all to tell me in the comments how you feel about this situation. All right? Let me know how you feel. I'm going to catch y'all on that flip side. Peace. Look, mission impossible to drop a few lines without dropping old times when Southern Hill was still a gold mine. When pistol grips was my shit and I sold mine. When Alias was not a show and they told mine.